Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Mocyk. I'm one of the instructional designers, work alongside with Doug Hemphill and also Teresa Gilliard-Cook. Today, we're just going to talk about the new design of the discussion tool in Brightspace. One of the things that was a I'll say a complaint in the very beginning when we got Brightspace was that the assignment tool was different than the quiz tool, which was different than the discussion tool. It was almost like they all had independently created these tools and then nobody checked each other's work. So we're really glad to hear that and see that Brightspace unified their design and more of a consistent layout than what we had before. So if we go to discussions, we went course tools and discussions. If we have the ability of clicking on new forum, and that will work if you've used discussions before, it will work the same way as it did before. You have to have a forum in order to develop a topic. We call the forum is like a bucket, and the topic is where the students interact, where you're going to grade from, where you're going to use the most. The forum is just the necessary step that gets you to the topic in most cases. So in this case, we're just going to skip right over to the topic because it's going to show us this new layout. So if I create a title for this, if I leave this alone right now, it's going to create a forum, which I said is a necessary step, and it's going to be named exactly the same thing. Now, if I wanted to change that forum, I could change it to something else. I could also switch it to an existing forum, and there are some benefits to doing that in certain circumstances, but keeping it simple today will just allow this to create the forum as it was. So that's a nice extra benefit of the way that this is designed in the streamline approach. If I choose to say how many points it's going to be out of, I have the option of edit or linking it to, it's going to have this title, but I could change the grade category if I needed to change this to discussions so that it would flow properly into the grade book under the correct category. And then if I was trying to update a discussion, I could link it to an existing grade item. So like if it was discussion 1 and this is a new updated discussion 1, I could relink it into the grade book. And then the rest of this all looks, that's all fine. And then if you notice, you'll see that this is more in line with what you would have seen in the other assessment types. So one thing about discussions is they do not have due dates. There is a workaround that we have figured out, but as it stands, there are no due dates, which is why you're not seeing it over here. But you can put a start date and an end date. There are the ability, if you are using groups of any sort, they have changed this a little bit just to make it a little bit easier. I think one of the things that they did is try to use more plain language to help everybody understand what they're talking about. And so you can choose to restrict the topic to separate threads or just restrict the topic to the group. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can restrict access.
And I will say, Carrie, as I understand it, this is not the same as a group discussion. This is who can see it versus when you create a group discussion, it automatically creates sub discussions for each group that is part of that group set.
Okay. Yeah, so this is just restricting access only. Okay.
I believe there's a potential I could be wrong about that.
I'm gonna look real quick. I didn't catch that because I don't see another place to change it to a group.
Okay, I'll have to look into that because it says it's just for restricting the topic by group or section, and that's how I read that language, but it may be
Yeah.
oh,
All
okay.
right.
No, sorry, it's the second option. So it's if you aren't using restrict top, that's where it was.
Okay.
So see, the
All right.
first
I was
one
going to
is
say,
okay, I want this to be limited by group. The second option is okay, I want this to be a group discussion. So those are
okay.
two, that's the difference there.
All right. Thank you for clarifying.
Well, I had to clarify it in my own.
It's like, oh, it looks the same, it works the same, except it's just slightly different to change things up a little bit.
Just enough to
In
keep
the
us on our toes.
Yes, of course. In the post and completion, you can it allows they change the wording on this just a little bit to allow learners to hide their name from other learners. They have to start a thread before they can reply, and you can approve them before they're posted. In the evaluation rubric, this pretty much looks the same, except you can change how the allow learners to rate posts. It has to be for the right environment. I would not, you have to have trust in your students in order to use that feature. I'm sure there's a use case for it, but it's just something to keep in mind.
The other thing is, so far as I'm aware, there is no back end of that, so you can't go and like pull statistics or anything from it. So I there may be a use case for it. I have not found it yet.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm just going to create a quick, I'm going to put a start date in for, I'll say the 1st, and an end date of the 8th. And we'll just save this. It's going to show up at the very bottom. I know this isn't necessarily related to it being a new, does anyone want to learn more about how if you have a due date, if you want to instill a due date inside of a discussion, I can show you that. That's kind of not necessarily about the new interface, but it can be helpful for faculty who would like it to show up in the due date.
I don't know about others, but I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Carrie,
So
can I also just ask you a question since we're on the dates part? Where
sure.
it says now that you have it open and closed February 1st to 8th, does that mean that after February 8th, students will not be able to? Okay, oh yeah. So it says access restricted after availability ends, but they'll be able to see it, they just can't post?
Not by default.
Okay, so they can't even see it after the end date.
I think I
Yes,
actually missed
but
that. Hold on.
there is a but to this. I'm not sure if you can do it in the new
There it is.
interface. Yep, there it is. So you can change that. So if you go in and in this case, do the end date instead, Carrie. No,
Visibility.
so cancel. You're on the start date.
Oh, sorry.
So you do visible with submission restricted. So visible with access restricted just means they can see the title of the discussion, but they can no longer go in. If you change it to visible with submission restriction, I can go in and look at all the historic posts. I just can't make new posts.
Yep. All right. So I will close out of that. And when we create discussions, you have to use existing activities to get it into your content, just like any other of the other assessments. But one of the things that the workaround for not having a due date is going to be by using a checklist. Now, this checklist, we can make it so it's not visible to students, but the date still ends up showing up for students in their calendar. And I have confirmed this morning. So let's just say felt session So I'm just creating a checklist. This is just the title. And I'm going to add a new list, and I'm going to say first discussion post due. And when I click on that, it adds I can add a due date in here. So I had said that it was, I'll just say Monday, the 5th of February. And now what's going to end up happening is we can look back here into our module, and I've got a lot of stuff in here. This is hidden from students, but if we go into the calendar, this will now show up. Oops, I did it wrong. Task 1 due. That's odd.
I think that's just the title naming convention.
Must have done something slightly different last time. I can play around with this for a second just to figure out what I did, but that is going to be the general concept. Now I changed the title, but from now on, the students are going to see that on the calendar. So if they're relying on that for due dates, it will show to them.
Now, my understanding with this is that these do not trigger overdue dates, but they also don't trigger completion. So they just stay there. Normally, when you have a due date attached to an assignment, once you do the assignment, the due date will sort of fall off your notifications. These just stay there. But I don't believe they throw overdue tags on. Though that might be something to double check, Carrie. This is something we only found out relatively recently, and we're still playing with it, but it's like, oh, that's really cool.
All right, so now I am impersonating a student, a test student, just to see what it looks like from that for them, and looking at the calendar. Oh, you can see it there. So it does show up, and inside the module, it's not visible to them. So it's a workaround. It's not, you know, a great solution, but it does work. So somewhere in there, I'll have to look to see where I missed the step of changing that task, but it was a quick fix anyway. All right, so does anyone have any questions about this? Oh, I actually did want one last thing. So because those dates are now kind of just floating in the calendar, using the date manager, which we did have a session on that earlier, you'll want to review the date manager to make sure you catch all those dates when you're updating your course from semester to semester.
And that is a filter in the date manager. You can pull down specifically, I want to see the dates attached to my checklists. So if there are no questions, and since we have about 5 minutes, I'm gonna hijack this a little bit, Carrie, and show 2 other quick things. One, if you go back to the discussion aggregator, just be aware that you can put date settings and some other settings in the forum. So if you pull down ask a question and edit it, you'll see you have the ability to turn on anonymous posts. You can set date restrictions, all this stuff. Don't do that, because all of these settings will override the topics, and at the same time, they don't show up in the content area. So you can't look in the content area and say, oh, students aren't seeing that because I accidentally hid the forum. And this is actually an issue that we get semi-regularly coming through the help system as to why can't I see my discussion. Oh, well, it's because the topic is set up perfectly fine, but something's been turned on in the forum. So just for your own sanity, make sure you do all dates, all restrictions, all of your view settings at the topic level, not the forum level. The other thing, if you go into the topic, this is just, again, a new feature, but I'm going to demonstrate it here because what we often do is use videos as a way to sort of jumpstart a topic. And as I noted in a previous session, LinkedIn Learning has now been integrated via an LTI. And if you want to use that, what you're going to do is click the link icon. Top row, yeah, that one. So it's quick links. And if you just scroll down a little bit, you should see LinkedIn Learning. Sorry, scroll down a lot because it's under third-party tools. And just click on that, and it will pull up the LTI for LinkedIn. It's exactly the same as the one I showed during the video session. So you just search for the video or course or learning string that you want, click on it, and it will add it into the discussion as a link. So last thing I will add is if you go into your Brightspace course right now, you will still see the old discussion interface. This new interface will be turned on by Monday at the latest. And I think I'm done hijacking Carrie's session.
I apologize. I thought it was already turned on. So, okay. No, that's good. It really is important. I think that's the number. We're talking about the forums and the topics, and the forum just treat it as the file, the folder, and the topic is where you do all your interactions. And as long as you do that, you'll be fine, because it is that was a confusing concept when we first started with Brightspace. So.
Yeah, Brightspace has a very bad habit of using category for everything. And the only time
Yes.
it really matters is in the gradebook.
All right. Does anyone have any questions about anything?
It's not about the discussion post, but when you were impersonating a student, that looked pretty nifty to me. Is that something new that we, because I do remember, okay, click on here and you can view as a student, but it wasn't,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to
we
know, like, I think this is what they're seeing. Like, is there
Yeah.
any way I can know for sure this is what a student is seeing? Because that is one thing that occasionally trips me up.
Yeah, unfortunately, the student preview in Brightspace is not as good as it was in Blackboard. That impersonate student is something that we have 3 test students that the instructional designers have access to for this purpose. We are having a session. Is it the next one, Doug?
Yeah, it's the next session.
Yeah, the next session is to show that view from the student view so that you can see what that looks like. We do have a couple videos of that that's on our DLE website, and you can just kind of, it just, if that helps you at all. But yes, it is a different view for sure. And unfortunately, we were only given a couple test students to be able to use.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve, what's up?
As it turns out, I was looking, it looks as though all of my discussion questions are forums, not topics. Is there a problem with that?
It depends. That's something you're going to want to drop into one of the office hours and we can review it with
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Yep.
So this is sort of on that too. So, I mean, I think the problem is that you can't grade forums, right? You can only grade topics. So
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm just realizing, because I really like what I've done. So let's say in a module, you have 3 discussions, right? So that makes sense to me to have like module 1, 3 different topics of discussion. But if you have only one discussion for each module, maybe it would make sense to just create one forum for like class discussions. Because that's been well, I don't know. I would be interested to hear, because what I used to do was like have a forum. Here are 3 possible questions, and then I would grade holistically for each of like for the whole, we'll call it forum, right? Because maybe not every student answers every question, but in Brightspace, I think you have like the only way I could grade it is each individual topic. You can't like
There
grade
are
forum
ways,
holistically.
so yes and no. You can only grade at the discussion level, but there are ways in the grade book to take all of the posts for a specific forum and add them up into one column and use that column as the basis for your grade. Or there's ways where the other option is just have essentially a paper and pencil and say, okay, let me look. Here's everything this student did for this one, for this one, for this one. Add them up and put them in manually. But yeah, there's a bunch of options. But again, that's much more than we can get into in the 3 minutes that we're already running over time. So
Right. Oh
again,
yeah. Then that's
I'd
fine.
encourage you to stop into our office hours. Or again, our office hours are available through oswego.edu/DLE. Just go to help and support. You'll see the hours and the link. Or you can always just drop a line to help@oswego.edu and request a meeting with one of us.
Yeah.
Okay. And these videos need time to render, so we need to let Maggie do her thing. So.
All right. Thank you, everyone.